Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Picardian.
Jared Brandon, wow.
Pickups. Hey, it's me, Todd Novak. Jared lost his mind real quick. We're super thrilled that you are listening to our show, the Guitar Knobs podcast. The love of our lives, the mistress to our... I don't know.
That's right.
Well, I better not say that.
Yeah, that's going to get you in trouble, Todd.
I'm going to agree.
Although anybody who has guitars knows that there is a little bit of truth to that, I'm sure.
Yes.
So we are going to have a fun little show today. We had some time out at a guitar show. We're gearing up for another big one. And there was just some things that happened specifically around the arena of pickups. We wanted to share some of these things. And I think from a perspective of someone who's looking for them, what are things are to be considered, and
also from the perspective of someone who is trying to answer those questions.
Yeah, we happen to have a professional, an expertise.
Really?
in the room. Yeah.
When is he coming in?
Well, he's due any minute.
Oh wait, that's me. That's me.
So
hey,
we got Big Jared in the room, and so we decided, hey, you know what? Let's ask him. So we'll get into that in a little bit. This is going to be really fun, I think, because pickups are one. It is ultimately the voice of,
and the cool thing about it is in most cases you can pretty easily switch out pickups and make most cases an improvement,
huge improvements, or if you want to you can make disastrous choices too.
Yeah, I've done one or two of those in my time.
Get into all of those things.
Me too.
Yeah, but that was in your 20s, so you're forgiven.
No, that was a long time ago.
Anyways,
I can't even remember that far back.
Gentlemen, we need to say a humongoid thank you to Rode Microphones for...
Thanks, Rode!
Yes, for hooking us up and providing us with some mighty fine equipment, beginning with our Procaster microphones. These things are amazing. And also the Rodecaster professional audio interface that allows us to do our show, our recording.
And with the new firmware, the record button is green, and when you push it, it goes red.
Yeah. Yes, that was a nice update because we were all sweating it every time we hit the button, and it kind of was red and then went just a little bit more red. So the guys at Rode are doing everything possible to continue to make this just an outstanding machine. It truly is.
It's a great one.
It's a huge upgrade. Totally.
Yes. Our shrinking violet in the corner, our giant octopus of equipment that allowed us to do the show for 3 years, everybody.
3 years.
We just hit the 3-year mark. April
Holy
16th,
moly.
A little bit of...
I'll drink to that.
I didn't make a big old, shamlazzle about it. I don't know if that's a word, but I just made it up.
I think it was on Laverne and Shirley.
It was on Laverne and Shirley, but I still don't know if that's a word.
What about these microphones? And the articulating arms.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Oh, that's right. You did say
Thanks for listening. Alrighty. So anyways, thank you. Huge thanks to Rode. And aside from, this podcast equipment, they make really fantastic
live sound reinforcement.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, microphones. You need them if you're playing live. Check them out. Good
I think it would be cool if they had these articulating arms. Use those live.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to. But anyway,
if you had an acoustic guitar, they'd come in handy.
Oh, that's true.
I think it would be just cool. It's like this big hunk of metal.
Actually, it'd be great if you were recording at home. This would be amazing. Yeah. These desk arms for recording at home.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be pretty...
I hadn't thought of that, but it really would.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Oh, thank you.
So, anyways, what do we do in our music world this week, gentlemen? Tony.
Well, this week, this was actually kind of an interesting project that I was involved with this week, and it kind of outlines a lot of the custom work that I do. This involved a Warmoth Telecaster bass body. So it's a bass guitar body shaped like a traditional Telecaster, single cutaway. And Warmoth does not make a guard or a tele-shaped guard that will work with this particular body. But I had a gentleman send me an email, send me a photo. And this one was kind of tricky too because it was also a bound body. So anytime that you're working with a bound body, any slight variations, when you bring like on a horn, for instance, you bring the horn in, and, if it's off just even a 1/16 of an inch, you can really notice it. So this was particularly tricky, and this was a guard that did not exist. And then the way the body was routed, there was a standard P-bass pickup in it, so I had to do a little finagling, and it worked out really well. I'm real happy with how it eventually turned out. I sent a photo to the customer, and he liked it too, which is always a good thing. But it's kind of cool, and so it's like a big body, a big Telecaster, but it's got it's a bass, so.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a fun little project. I mean, it takes a lot of extra time on my part, but it at the end of the day, it's something different. I'm not making 12 more Strat guards or Tele guards or whatever. This is
breaks the monotony.
Right.
It's a real unique thing. I'm sure, Jared, when you do some of the crazy stuff that I have you do, it's like a break from what you do day in, day out.
Yeah.
So that was
nice.
that was a cool thing this week.
Have you gotten any new materials in, by the way? Like
New plastic.
yeah,
New plastic.
like Nito stuff.
It's been a while since I've actually done an in-depth search. I mean, I've brought some stuff in from China that there is some unique shell materials. There's like a blue and silver shell. There's a brown shell. There's a while back I brought in the tiger eye and the zebra shell. Those were kind of cool materials.
That was cool.
I mean, they're out there. They're kind of wacky, but it's interesting.
Sounds like Brian Nutter might want to get a hold of you.
Yeah, that would be cool. But anyhow, it's just one of those. I'm of course at the mercy of the manufacturers, and it doesn't seem a lot of times that there's much interest. I actually find some cooler materials overseas, whether it's through like eBay or directly to those people.
While we're on just the top, just you're sharing a little bit more about what you do, and for those who aren't aware, if you're just joining us for the very first time, Tony is the premier pick guard maker in the entire country,
In the world.
I'm going to say that.
That's true.
And he
Well, thank you. That's awfully nice of you.
He doesn't just make little pick guards for one-offs. He supplies to an awful lot of very big names in the industry that will remain nameless.
Yes.
But that said, if you have something awesome that you want to do,
Yeah, but
that's a ticket.
the big jobs are fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing sometimes
like me.
like you,
Like me.
the custom stuff because just like we were talking about this last project, it's something different and it really does require. You have to think things out. You have to measure things. You've got to fit things. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So the question I have for you is, aside from just using the materials that you have at your disposal, which are far more than most people could even comprehend, just as far as like patterns and colors and stuff. There's some amazing plastics out there, but we move away from that, from the ready-made. What are some things, and that you might have you considered or would like to do on a guitar that is maybe unconventional? Say, for instance, taking like a page like from a vintage comic book and basically adhering it to the back of clear plexi. And using that as a pick guard. Like I just made that up. I don't know if that's a thing or not.
Well, there's tons of options. I mean, I've done things, pick guards made from, LP records.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky because of the size and all, but, and there's some limitations there, but, in terms of clear material,
like gift store stuff though.
well, yeah, it's kind of cool though.
Well, they got
my
the
personal
30
thing.
grams now. They have the thicker LPs that you can.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But it's all good. But yeah, and I do a lot of clear guards, and sometimes I'll shoot the backside with paint, lacquer or whatever. And then I have other, customers that just want a clear guard to do kind of what you're talking about. They'll sandwich, a photograph or a page from a magazine or whatever behind clear. But then there are some other options. And I've done some.
I think fabrics would work amazing on it, wouldn't it?
Well, the problem is, trying to get it to adhere to the clear without it, because if you put a piece of material behind a piece of clear, it can shift. And fabric especially kind of stretches kind of funny.
Spill a beer on your guitar, it'll soak it up.
So
unless you adhere it.
Unless you adhere it.
Yeah.
But a better option that I've done some exploration on is there are printers, basically jet printers, that will shoot onto just about any surface.
True.
So they can print on the back side of clear.
Yeah.
And then it could be cut from that. And there are other, there's another process that actually uses a pickguard material that can be printed on the top side, and then it's sealed with a clear material. But yeah, it's all, it gets, you have to be really careful because there are some people that want you to try to do, whether it's a copyrighted or trademark thing, and you have to be really careful with a lot of that types of things. But if it's, just their own photograph or something like that,
or just get away with it.
Well, I try not to get away. I try to be relatively legitimate.
Well, yes,
and avoid lawsuits. Yeah. But there are some options out there, and it's not for everybody. Probably 3/4, if not more, customers want something more traditional, something that is either a replacement or they're changing out pickups or whatever that looks pretty much close to the original guard they had. But then there's another group, and they like the flashier materials. They want to do something with a graphic on it. I also do a lot of the like a signature guard where we take their signature and cut it out of vinyl and put it on the back side of clear, and then shoot over the back of that.
Kind of reminiscent of like old 50s style country stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's
punkabilly, rockabilly.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that, that like to, feel that they're good enough to have their own signature model.
I get it. Something else that I would like to get off of your mic, there is a giant hair on your windscreen. It's driving me nuts. It looks big from here. I just have eagle eyes. That one? Thank you. All right.
Is that a nose hair?
No, it was not a nose hair.
No, that was a...
Thankfully.
If it is, good for you for getting that out.
It's better now.
Jared, what's going on?
Yeah, so a couple of things this past week, real quick. The first thing, Zachary Oswald, my little helper friend, brought a...
little Zach.
Does he appreciate that?
He doesn't care.
Well, anybody's little compared to you.
Zach could care less what I call him.
All right.
So he brings me this 1958 Telecaster that is going to be refinished. So we took it up to Akron and had the guitar refinished and brought it back.
What was it painted?
Actually, it's seafoam green. And
no. What was it original? What was before it was stripped?
Oh my gosh! It was like a brown. Did you see it? It was a brown sparkle. Somebody brown sparkled it like back in the 60s or 70s.
Wow.
It was a maroon sparkle maybe, and it kind of turned brown.
And this is a 58 Telecaster.
58 original 58 Telecaster. Everything on the guitar was original.
I think root beer is kind of a cool color.
That's what it was.
Well, Bill Crook just did a run of some of his guitars, and one of them he did it like a copper metallic, and then he did a root beer metallic, and it actually looks pretty cool.
It's not my jam,
because
but
the owner of the guitar bought the guitar for like really cheap for being what it was. It's an original 58, and all the parts on it are original. The bridge pickup needed to rewound, so I did that for him. But when we got the guitar back and it was finished, it transformed. It looks legitimate now. It looks awesome, and even more so when I plugged this thing in and played it, I couldn't believe it was a Telecaster. It's not used to what I'm usually playing because I don't have a 58. I don't have a vintage Telecaster. However, this thing is just rung forever. I can't stress how vintage instruments do feel and sound different than modern instruments.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the new pickguard that I made for it, too.
I think everything had to do with it.
Well, speaking of which, what was really cool about it, so Jared brought over the original pickguard, which had a chunk missing and part of the horn was cut off or something. It was weird. But it was an original guard, in my opinion. So it was single ply material, but it had 8 screw holes. So it was kind of a transition guard between the 5-hole guards that were originally used in the 50s and the 8-hole guards, multiply material that were used in the early 60s. So it's kind of cool to see, that such a thing actually did exist.
Speaking of guards, real quick, I'm just gonna throw something out there. See if this works. See if this actually comes to fruition. I think that we'll see a trend up in not oversized pick guards, but more area covering the guitar made out of pickguard material. That's all. I'm just putting that out there. Think
would make you say that?
Like Gibson recording. Think Sonics. Think. I'm premonitioning. Is that a word?
So anyway, my second thing.
Yes.
The second thing I was going to mention, I have a 1962 SG Les Paul. I love this. It's like my favorite guitar. And for a long time, I didn't realize this, but the tremolo that's on it is kind of high for the bridge that's there. And so I took it to.
Is it like a Maestro tremolo?
It is.
Okay.
It's one of the first versions of the vibrola. It's a short vibrola, and it's got the ebony tailpiece on it, which is pretty rare and pretty cool and pretty sought after too for SGs. So I'm not a talented setup guy like our friend Sean over at the Guitar Repair Company here in Columbus. That dude can look at a guitar and within minutes can tell you, this is what's wrong. And he's amazing. He's really good at what he does. So I took the guitar to him, and within minutes, he says, well, the roll is too high, and, you don't have a good angle. That's why your string is escaping the saddle. The saddles, the bridge needs to be higher for it to, operate correctly. So I got him some new, I bought some new vinyl saddles, and it's the old kind of vinyl. It's the milky white instead of like the new clear.
Oh yeah,
It's like the old style. So
the nylon saddles.
Yeah, he said he's going to raise the nut. He's going to raise the action a little bit, get a slightly bigger size string, change the saddles, and all those little tiny things. There's actually some felt underneath the spring of the vibrola that he said that can come off, and it'll just make a difference. It'll actually make a big difference, keeping that string in this. So every little tiny thing that he's doing is going to improve the setup substantially.
I think you should just route it for a Floyd Rose.
I could, and then I would just throw it in the fireplace the next day. And that's pretty much what's happened in my world there. So I can't wait to get that guitar back.
Cool.
Nice.
How about you, Todd? What's going on?
Well, I set up my secondary pedal board, which is the thing that I use when people are sending us pedals that are going to be on the show. And we've got somebody that's going to be coming up, Occult Effects.
Yes.
Occult. Local fella. And he came into my work and brought in this big box of pedals. And so I was able to actually string them all up and get to tweak around with them. And it was a ton of fun.
It's cool. I've had a chance to work through most of those, and I love he makes a Sun Model T preamp.
Yeah,
that is in a clock radio housing.
Yeah,
which
is cool.
I thought it was, it's kind of primitive, but it looks, it looks cool.
Don't try to put it on your pedal train Metro, but
well,
unless that's the only one that you're.
Yeah, you're gonna need a little bit of Velcro for that.
Yeah, so it's just cool, like checking out, like playing different guitars through it. I was, switching back and forth between my Supro. Black Magic and the David Harris hand-wired amp that I have, and it was it's a fun time, just like fiddling around. I spend most of my guitar time actually working on either songs for songs for the band, trying to improve them or trying to write new ones. But so this was just playtime.
That's
and
cool.
It was good.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, I do when I test out things here for the show at the shop. It is kind of it's a break from chopping up plastic and trying some different things out and seeing how they react to my setup.
Amen.
Indeed. All right, everybody, we're going to get on with this little show. It's
The bouillabaisse.
It's Jared, I think Jared's
WWJD. What would Jared do?
What would Jared do?
I love it.
Yeah.
I get to talk.
So, set up here, we went to Guitar Fest in Akron.
Awesome show.
It was a great show. A lot of people, big turnout, great building, all the good things. I actually helped kind of man Jared's booth. He had a couple winders there, which was really cool.
Yeah. People dug it.
They weren't actually winding the pickups, but it was a nice way to let people see. Like,
I think you should wind them there.
Well, I actually had the bobbins turning.
Yeah.
So they were on and turning, but
It's a little more complicated to actually make them there. Right?
yeah. A spool of wire, especially a heavier spool, is very at the same time as fragile, because if you bump into that spool of wire, anything
just snap.
Yeah. Unstable tables, like the whole deal. Anyways.
Yep.
So we did that show. We are helping Jared gear up for NAMM. Now that we just got through talking about NAMM, we're going to start with. I'm sorry, I don't know how to it's a thing.
Okay.
It's a thing in our
It's a
universe.
permanent thing.
Those who don't know about NAMM
Everybody. Well, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
should familiarize themselves with it. And if you can get there, go there and just experience it at least one time in your life.
Yeah. No, it's true. It is a gathering of, musicians and producers and
Makers.
More importantly. And yeah, I mean, everybody gets together, and this time it's going to be in the summer show will be in Nashville, as it has been for the last couple of years.
Fun.
So it's a little smaller show, but it will be, I think it's going to be
great. I'm going to be sad I'm not there. But in preparation for that, we started thinking about what could Jared do that would be helpful to the regular person who is not a pickup builder. What are the things that they are considering? What are things that they should consider when considering new pickups?
That's right. So the big question you get is, so you make pickups, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I get that a lot.
Well, and I think, the answer to that is, well, yeah, I wind them myself.
Oh, yeah.
And, these are not being brought in from China or Korea or something like that and being relabeled. These are actually being hand wound right here.
Hence I brought the machines in to show everybody.
Exactly.
In Pataskala, Ohio. Anyway, so Tony and I came up with a bunch of questions for Jared.
I can't wait to answer.
And these are from the perspective of, again, someone who doesn't have intimate knowledge of super duper pickup knowledge.
Wow.
Yes.
That's quite the intro.
Got the words. Let me
You
tell
have many words.
Got the words that don't
Just
pay
going
the
to make
bills.
me look better.
Yeah. All right. Tony, how about we just do a little question tennis, so to speak?
Bing bong.
I'll just go ahead and...
Yeah, you want you to start.
I'll start. At the booth, we ran into quite a few people who were like, I'm thinking about putting your pickup in my enter sort of like second tier brand, all right? Or maybe third. Epiphone Les Paul. Mm-hmm. Okay. Many Epiphone questions. They said, I'm thinking about putting new pickups in. Which ones should I get? Now, the biggest problem with those that we encountered is all the electronics.
Yeah, not just the pickups.
Not just the pickups. So the question coming to someone, hey, I'm thinking about putting some awesome pickups in my maybe, let's just say, budget guitar. Okay, right. My budget guitar. How important are the electronics beyond the pickups?
Extremely. Basically, when you get a really good pickup, you want the pickup to go through quality electronics. And if you're going to replace your pickups in your average guitar, you want to make sure that your pots values are going to work with those perfectly.
And just what explain pots real quick.
Pot, the potentiometers, they control the tone, they control the volume as well. And if
what your knobs are connected to.
That's exactly right. If you have, underpowered capacitors, you're not going to have enough brightness.
I think the values need to at least fall into what we call standard parameters, like a 500K pot on a humbucker versus a 250K pot on a single coil pickup.
Yeah, Gibson did this in the 70s. They had 300K pot wiring harnesses for their T-top humbuckers, which are basically just an average traditional humbucker. And they kind of sounded muddled. And, when you switch that out and you have a nice, I like to say, breathable room potentiometer to handle that pickup, it's an equalizing kind of thing.
Well, because even wide open, a potentiometer or pot has some effect on the overall tone because of the, obviously the lower the number, the more high end it cuts. That's why you use a 250 on a single coil versus a 500. And when Gibson did the 300s, it was just really a step up from what typically Fender uses. So you're chopping off a ton of high end.
Yeah. So, when someone walks up to me and says, "Hey man, I got this, average guitar, insert your own brand," I always ask, I said, are you looking to replace the pots? Because I would do that too. And to my advantage to that as well is, I wouldn't want to sell somebody a good set of pickups that are putting it in, a guitar with a less quality wiring harness. Because, the user's not going to realize, hey man, what's wrong with these pickups? I thought they were going to sound like this. Well, yeah, you have to change your wiring harness because it'll come back on me.
Well, I think, the pots and the caps are very important, but if you're going to use it as a live guitar, my number one changeover is always the jack, because a lot of times the less expensive guitars use a very cheap jack that likes to, it's not well made. I like the Switchcraft jacks.
Yeah.
And if, the little tiny spring ones that show up in a lot of Epiphones and things, they just don't last. And, the signal shorts out. Every time you touch the jack, it'll move around a little bit. Yep.
Switch as well.
And the switch. Yeah.
If it's not Switchcraft, then get Switchcraft.
Yeah.
I will not use anything unless it's Switchcraft or better, and find me something better.
So
I don't know.
Another part of that question, and this actually came up many times at the show, was I've got a semi-hollow body. And this is where the Sheraton thing came in, because, when I had Jared put his pickups in my Sheraton, he said, "Hey, buddy, I can do this for you, but you have
quick connects,
quick connects wiring, and which just makes it a lot easier to wire a semi-hollow body guitar." And what that is that you've got, well, Jared, explain that, will you?
A semi-hollow, you don't have pickguard access like you do on electric guitars. So for production wise, they use quick connects. It's basically a plastic terminal.
It's a male and female, sort of like just any kind of plug, and they plug together. The wires don't go directly from the pickup to the pot.
Yeah, right. That, I guess there's kind of a chance of failure there eventually, but
I think a word of warning is if you are not experienced in wiring and moving pots and wiring inside of a semi-hollow or full hollow, don't do it. I mean, it can be a nightmare. And then once you yank everything out, taking it to someone to have them do it, it's going to be a minimum 2, maybe 3 hours worth of work just to get everything back in place. So if
there's also a number of different providers for pre-wired harnesses.
Oh yeah.
That if you want to get, a great pair of pickups and you don't want to actually rewire everything, but just want to get a harness that has great pots, that has great switches, that has great wiring on it, there are several people out there that provide that. And we've had a couple on the show. Yeah. There are a couple more out there. So take some time, explore, check out the reviews, ask around, see what works.
So the lesson we learned from this question was if you're going to change out pickups, you probably want to take a look at the rest of the wiring too, just to make sure that everything matches up right and is as high a quality as possible.
Absolutely. Good. You'll just ruin the whole new pickup experience if you don't, and you have a really bad wiring harness.
Cool.
Now, when people come and they say, Cool. I'm interested in this set of humbuckers. What's the output? If someone is wanting a high output pickup versus a low output pickup, that's another question we got a lot of. Talk about that a little bit.
So your high output pickup usually has a strong magnet, like your, DiMarzio Super Distortion, around 12 to 13K with a ceramic magnet, which is very, very strong. That gives you the very mid, the strong mids and the thick, juicy sound that transforms your guitar, basically. And then you have the low output pickup, like, the best example would be like a Stratocaster pickup. It's a single coil, so you have less magnet strength.
Yeah, less distortion, more clean tone.
And that's for like jazz players and country and all that kind of thing. People generally, when they come to me, they said, I just want a hot humbucker pickup.
That's another term that people will say is a high output is also hot.
Right.
Right. So high output. Customers usually want PAF, which stands for patent applied for. It's basically a traditional humbucker that Gibson came out with in the 50s and 60s.
It's fair to say that's considered the standard of humbucker pickup.
Yeah, it's your traditional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a low output or is that a high output or is it in the middle?
Probably by today's standards, it's low. It's on the lower side.
Yeah, that's pretty much as low as you can get with humbuckers. Now in the 70s, they came out with the RD series. Those were even lower output, like 5K, and they were very low output because they had a Moog circuitry inside the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And all that kind of powered those pickups.
So it's really kind of like the first active pickup.
Kind of, yeah. I think you're right.
Just no batteries.
Yeah.
So what I just talked about there is kind of rare. You don't really see that much anymore, But
yeah, standard pickup. So basically, I think, I know when people talk to you, I've seen you interact with them. You usually say, well, what kind of music do you play?
Exactly. You want to ask the person, what kind of music do you play? And what guitar do you have? And I ask them what kind of guitar they have, of course, so I can, refer them to getting better pots if necessary.
Right.
And so I kind of go off of what they tell me. And if they can't really explain it very well, then I said, well, send me some YouTube links of the sounds that you really like. And I can pretty much get them in the area that they need to reproduce that sound.
And that I think, and it's not, the answer is not always going to a hotter pickup.
Right.
In a lot of cases, it's maybe changing the type of magnet that's on the thing. If they're trying to do more of a classic rock sound, you're going to put probably, if they have ceramic magnets in a guitar right now, which a lot of less expensive guitars do, you might push them towards A5, Alnico 5s or 3s or even 2s.
Well, that's a really good segue. That's the next question is Alnico ? And why ? The reason I'm bringing that up isn't necessarily that is the only kind of magnet or anything, but that is that common term that gets thrown around a lot.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are asking, but not really understanding why they're asking. So 5 in all other measurement systems and everything else that we deal with, ratings and everything else, is better than 2. So when someone says, I need an Alnico 5, but then you begin to say, well, some of these are 2s or some of them are 4s, or maybe you have a 5, or what do people need to be concerned with as far as the difference between those?
The numbers actually just represent the mixture, the metal mixture.
So it's not a rating.
Yeah.
Right.
So sonically, what is the difference, say, between a A5 and an A2?
The 5s are generally brighter and the 2s are not so bright.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
That's a good explanation. Now, does that mean that a 3 or a 4 is on that same sliding scale if a 2 is not bright and a 5 is very bright?
That's correct. They're kind of in between.
Okay.
All right. There's not a lot of difference between them all.
Okay. So if I if I'm playing a lot of music with like a lot of distortion and effects, is one of those better for me than the other?
I mean, if you're doing high output things, I think you'd probably want to go to the ceramic route.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump there. Ceramic. What's the deal with ceramic? Like, is that something that is actually something to be concerned about?
It's a very high strength magnet. It's really going to push what you have.
It's also a less expensive magnet because it's not a metallic composite.
Yeah, it is less expensive, and generally the public out there that know a little bit about pickups, when they think of ceramic, they just think of cheap because of the price of ceramic. However, if you build a pickup with ceramic magnets and you build it well, I wouldn't think of it as a cheap pickup. I would look at it as at the utility standpoint where it could be very useful.
I think that's a good point, and that's where a lot of things like, the things that we have for measurement, like why would I want a high output versus a low output? High is always better, is it not? Why would I want an Alnico 2 instead of an Alnico 5? High is always better, right? So there's these sort of myths and misunderstandings about that. Like,
Definitely misunderstandings. They're
misunderstandings. So like the idea of saying, hey, a ceramic isn't as good as an Alnico 5, just simply because more people say the word Alnico as opposed to ceramic is not a wise thing to like basically use that as a measurement.
Right. There's a lot of misperception actually.
And that's what I'm trying to clarify.
And I think, if you are lucky enough to work with a one-on-one with a pickup winder like Jared or others, they can ask you, if you're playing, super high output heavy metal kind of stuff, you probably don't necessarily want to go with an Alnico magnet. You want, in a lot of cases, those guys are playing, active like EMG pickups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a bluesy tone or you want a classic rock tone and things like that, you're trying to replicate, I guess, what some of your, guitar heroes played. Yeah. Chances are, if they played in the late 60s or even early 60s into the 70s, they're going to probably be playing classic Gibson style pickups, which would have had an Alnico in them.
No, when did ceramics really come about? I think that's part of the lore or the myth, is that all the vintage stuff seems to is all Alnico.
Yeah.
But then, so newer doesn't necessarily equal better in the world of guitars. Always. So there's a little perception there too.
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s is when you really saw it being prominently used in speakers as well.
Right.
Gibson used it primarily in their mini humbuckers in the early 70s to just kind of give them a mid boost, because if you have a mini humbucker that's, reads down into the 7s and the 6s with Alnico magnets.
Output,
that's right.
6K output.
And they don't really sound like a nice thick meaty humbucker or a nice meaty P90, because the magnetic flux is much smaller. It's tighter. It's more like a single coil, but annoys a single coil. So using the ceramic magnet in the 70s, it kind of gave it a nice mid boost, and they sounded better.
And that was the sound of the 70s. I mean, that mid sound was
mix
huge.
that with a Marshall, and that's
DiMarzio and Mighty Mite started making these high output ceramic magnets, and people were taking out their traditional humbuckers and slapping those in. DiMarzio and Mighty Mite, those guys were the innovators and really put a good name on ceramic magnets, on that perception.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, what about,
Tony, next question.
What about
Ask Jared a question.
Should I ask him now? Is that the part of the show where I ask him a question?
I love questions.
So, and this is going to really relate primarily to humbuckers and maybe a Tele neck pickup. How important or how not important is having a cover on a humbucker or a Tele neck pickup?
A lot of people ask me, does it really change the tone when I put a nickel cover on? It can a little bit, but you're going to see more of a difference on a computer program where you've tested the pickup on screen more than you will with your ears. So I think you'll hear with your eyes more than you will with your actual ears when you do the cover thing. Does it alter the tone? I think it does just a teeny bit, but again, I don't think it's very noticeable.
Well, you take like a player like Jimmy Page, like
Right.
he took the cover off of his bridge pickup,
Right.
to make it brighter, and I think a cover.
Is it just
I guess
a barrier in the way of the magnetic
Well,
force,
it actually is a shield, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
It's a metallic shield.
It's non-ferrous, so it's not magnetic, or else it would cancel out your pickup. You wouldn't hear anything. It would just be garbage. It's non-ferrous, so it's theoretically it's not supposed to really affect the magnetism. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to get a whole. But there's something there, though, right? So yes, it is hindering, and you take that off, and I think it will sound just maybe a touch brighter. The main reason I think
having a conversation through a blanket or not through a blanket.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't know. I just trying to think of something.
Maybe a bed sheet.
A bed sheet. That's weird.
I'm going to throw in another word that I think is really important with this question is potting as well. Because if you have a pickup that's not
great
potted,
point.
Why don't you
What is potting?
explain potting?
Potting is when you have hot wax in a container and you dip the pickup in the hot wax, and the wax is nice and hot, heats the pickup up and allows the wax to penetrate the pickup and the windings and everything there. So it keeps everything nice and tidy and tight, and there's no wires or no movement at all that's going to create feedback. Microphonic feedback. And
I would assume that also protects it from elements as well.
yeah, like sweat and beer and
A little bit.
vomit or whatever. So
Or just, air, humidity, and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Humidity
That's
especially.
a big thing too. So if you have a pickup, a humbucker, and you don't have it covered, you're going to get less microphonic feedback. But if it's potted, you're going to get hardly any at all. But if you have an unpotted humbucker with a cover on it, you will get more feedback. And it can be a problem on stage.
Interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
So covers and potting go hand in hand.
Now, I also get the question, does potting change the tone of my pickup? It can, and that's kind of a rabbit hole question. There's a lot of people that say yes and a lot of people say no, but I will tell you this much. When you lose some of the microphonic feedback, I think that can change it dynamically. And what I mean by that is, when you play the guitar and every little movement you make on that string near that pickup, you're going to be able to hear it a lot better if it's not potted, because you're getting all that, you know what I'm saying?
It's the nuances.
And it's really hard to put in words. So I'm sorry if I'm not coming through on that.
I think that's a really, really great point, because it's almost like having it unpotted offers up a little bit more personality. It's like the friend that you go to the bar with that might get a little crazy, but might not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if your friend gets too drunk and starts getting microphonic, you don't like your friend anymore.
No, nobody likes that noise.
Then you walk away and let the rest of the bar beat them up. Never do that. Never leave a friend alone at a bar.
That's a bad wingman.
But what I'm trying to say is, for my personal style, I would want like that little, being able, if I get close to the amp, or if I'm holding a specific note and trying to get a little bit of crazy sustain out of it, that it's going to do something a little special that if it's too controlled will never happen.
Right, exactly. And controlling it is key, especially if you have an unpotted covered pickup. And your volume, just turning it from 9 to 8 makes all the difference in the world as far as, microphonic feedback. It's crazy.
How do you explain that a little bit?
So your volume pot controls the volume of your pickup. And if you turn it down a little bit, you're basically taking power away from the pickup, and it's not going to, be harmonically loud, and
so it'll give you a little bit even more control.
A lot more control.
All right.
So
Gotcha.
I mean, just And that's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like the volume is kind of your tone in the same way, because you're kind of controlling how much microphonic feedback goes.
Well, and that
goes through.
Let's just for an illustration. A lot of times when you see like really well-known guitar players, really prolific players, and you see them playing, and they're constantly fiddling. You know, you see the pinky go to the volume like all the time, and you're like, you're just playing. Why? It's a stadium. How are you making it like a tenth louder? But that's probably not what they're doing. They're controlling maybe some of the microphonics that may or may not be happening, or just dialing back the tone to get more control if they're not hearing that. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, I think, and a lot of players, have their amps wide open. And maxed out, so that you're actually controlling the dynamics and the sound of your guitar and the amps with your volume control on your guitar.
Yeah, it's very difficult if you're not used to doing that.
Now, are P90s potted?
They were not traditionally when they first came out, but yes, they are now standard. That's a standard thing.
Yeah, I think pretty much almost every modern reproduction or whatever is potted, because the microphonics, it's deemed as a defect in the pickup. Even the original Gibson PAFs were not potted.
That's correct. Nothing was back then.
Yeah.
Fender potted their stuff all the time. And
that's right.
Yeah, but Gibson did not until I believe the mid 80s.
Yeah. And Fender even they moved away from wax for a while to lacquer, didn't they?
They used
late 60s.
Exactly. They used bad lacquer that they couldn't use on instruments anymore, and they found a use for it by dipping all the pickups in it before potting. I'm sorry, not potting. Before winding and after winding.
Huh.
Keep everything nice and tidy and tight.
That's weird. So if someone said, "Hey, I don't want a potted pickup, Jared, because I play like really sort of wild, spontaneous style playing for like garage rock or something,"
or if they want an authentic sounding like a PAF,
or if they want to, do you recommend that? Asking like, will you make unpotted pickups?
I generally make unpotted pickups more than I do potted, because my whole business is based on original traditional style pickups.
Right.
And usually if somebody's asking me to make it unpotted, they already know what it takes to, control their guitar, and they already know what they're doing anyways.
Interesting.
So I won't test their knowledge on it. I'll pretty much assume that they know what they're getting into. Of course, I still will ask them what they do and what they play and whatnot. I mean, knowledge is power. When it comes to building somebody a set of pickups.
How about if somebody says, "Well,
Tony, ask him a question." That's the last time I'll do it.
Is this the point where I ask Jared a question?
Go ahead.
So let's, somebody says, "Well, I'm happy with my neck pickup, but I want something different in my bridge pickup."
Or you're like me and just can't leave anything alone.
Or if you're like Todd and can't leave anything alone, and you're going to mix
a
Telecaster pickup with a mini humbucker or something like that. So what are the good and the bad and the uglies of mixing pickups?
Well, it mostly depends what kind of guitar you have. I think. Oh, that's a tough question.
Well, let's get specific. Instead of all three of those, what are some combinations that you just you would recommend not to pursue, not to spend good money on? Because here's the other thing. Again, sound can be completely subjective, and we can talk about all the subjectivity in sound. But when you're pulling out your hard-earned $100+ for a new pickup, well over that in most cases, that's maybe not the best time to just for total experimentation. And the other problem that's a barrier for people to get past is it's not like a pedal that I can plug in. Oops, I don't like it, I'm going to return it. This is surgery on a guitar.
Yeah, it's more of a permanent change than a pedal would be. This is a great question, and this is a perfect time to bring up the Telecaster Custom. Those came original with a low, I don't want to say low output, but with a traditional output Telecaster bridge pickup is around, 6K and all Nico. It's a traditional pickup. In the neck position, it came with a high power, hot, wide range pickup. It was the loudest pickup you can get in 1972, I think.
Why do we think that was made? I have a suspect, but
Seth Lover invented that thing, but why it was made that way, I would love to hear your question, because I have no idea why somebody made that. Other than maybe Keith of the Rolling Stones.
I mean, he's the one who really put it on the map.
He did play several Tele Customs, 70s Tele Customs.
To get back to the question, that's something I can make that traditional setup, and I do have that as a product on my website. However, when somebody asks me about it, I say, listen, let me lower the output on that wide range.
Yeah.
And let me make that bridge pickup nice and steamy hot so you have more of a balance. And it's still never going to be perfect because the wide range is actually a very thick sounding pickup. And when you put it in the neck position of a guitar, you have to remember the strings are, at a max oscillation point. That means the strings are vibrating very widely, which creates a high bass response.
A lot of mud. That's where you get a muddy sound.
Right. Yeah, that's where your bass sound is. So you're putting a bass prone pickup and a bass sound, and then you've got the little single coil, the little wimpy single coil down at the bridge. It's going, and then your neck's going boom, boom.
Yeah.
So. But it's not the best combination ever invented.
And I think that, Fender realized that, because the next variation, like the Tele Deluxe or even the Tele Thin 72 Tele Thin line, they put a wide range in both the neck and the bridge, which actually helped balance things out a little bit.
A little better. Yeah, they could have had less output on the
first
neck,
one
but
looks
they didn't.
so cool though. It does. It looks cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
it does look really cool.
You brought up a really important point, and this also came up, and I don't want to derail too much, but it pertains to what we're talking about, mixing and matching, which was balance. And that's something that just for clarification, that is important, because I'm going to go to Tony for this one.
Well, I mean, obviously, in most cases, you want a lower output, lower volume pickup in the neck position to compensate, as Jared said, with the strings. The strings are bouncing more in the neck position, making it usually louder. And then in your bridge position, you usually want something a little bit hotter, and maybe something that even cuts some of the highs a little bit, because the closer you get to the bridge, the higher, the tinnier the sound of the pickup's going to be. So the balance is usually pretty good. You can adjust it to some extent by raising and lowering the pickups.
Yeah.
But at least in my experience, I found that, generally speaking, if you have a stock or a stock winding, or even a +5 or +10 in the bridge, and then a -5 or 10% in the neck position, it balances better without having these drastic height differences.
And that would come into play if you are switching pickups between, in the middle of a song for like a lead, or just if you're switching, you're going to hear a massive volume increase.
Totally.
You're going to be like, whoa, everybody's going to be like, what just happened here? It sounds like a mistake.
Or if even in the middle position, if it's on a 2 pickup guitar, you want...
Nobody uses the middle position.
I do. Jeez.
Anyways, so back to the mixing and matching, which I think is super interesting, especially when we're putting in reference to a guitar show, because you have, or a guitar, any kind of a swap meet style place where there's tables full of pickups, and we'll get to this in a second, but we are in the age of customization, and whatever comes from the manufacturer, I can surely make better this is basically mainly my approach, but I can surely make better or different. So putting a Firebird mini humbucker in with a higher output Telecaster pickup is something that I did in mine. Now, some people may think that's stupid. Some people may think that's awesome, but it's a mix and match thing. So that was a really great example of like a very specific, well-known, maybe not so good mismatch. The wide range and the Tele single coil bridge. Any other ones come to mind?
Well, yeah, lipstick stuff. I mean, those aftermarket lipsticks are getting really popular, and you want to be careful when you buy those because traditional ones are very low output, like 3 to 4K.
Like on a Den Electro.
Yes, they are very low output. And if, you stick them on your Strat, say you have a stock, a humbucker 2 single Strat, humbucker in the neck, or I'm sorry, in the bridge. And then you say, well, I'm going to switch out my 2 singles with a couple of Dan Electros or, style lipsticks. You've got this honking humbucker in the bridge. And then you've got, which is probably 9, 10K on a Strat. And then if you put a couple of 3K, lipsticks, it's going to be night and day.
Yeah, they just can't keep up with it.
Huge volume problem. And it's going to sound weird too.
Yeah, I think other popular, like gold foils, those seem to be popping up all over the place.
Yeah, if you want these pickups for the looks, by all means get them. But make sure you know what you're buying as far as output and magnetism and that kind of thing there.
So in that case, maybe you want to get a really, really low output humbucker. If that was the case, if you wanted that kind of configuration.
In order to match them up, I think you'd want to do something like that. Or
I would get the hotter lipstick pickups.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one thing with custom winders. You can specify these types of things, and if somebody like Jared knows what you're trying to mix and match, he can make a full set. I think that balance better.
Exactly.
Right. What about some great combinations that are coming up these days in the world of like jalopy modding your guitar?
I'm a big fan of a Telecaster with a humbucker or a Filtertron in the neck.
Oh, yeah.
Those, I mean, to me, the Filtertron especially, because it's a little lower output than typical humbuckers, it just sounds great to me.
Can you just briefly touch on Filtertron?
So, Filtertrons are humbuckers as well.
Yeah.
They tend to be a little lower output. They tend to be a little brighter, because they're a little lower output. But Gretsch made the Filtertrons, starting in the late 50s, early 60s.
And those ones typically have the long sideways H cut out.
Yeah, it says patent number or whatever on the top. And
very vintage retro looking.
So they were meant to be single coil sounding, but still noise canceling.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Whereas the true humbucker, as we call it, like something that Gibson would have put out, tends to be a little bit hotter.
It's fair to say that those were put out. I'm going to take a stab at this because they were making all hollow body at that time.
Well, right? Yeah, Gretsch put them out. The original, most of the early 50s and through the late 50s had D'Armond single coil pickups. They called them Dynasonics at the time. And they were noisy. I mean, they still are noisy. It's a single coil pickup. But, if you like Strats or if you like Teles that have single coils, you deal with the same kind of noise output. Mm-hmm. But I think they wanted to shift over to something quieter. So Gretsch developed this pickup that, was hum canceling. Mm-hmm. And I think Gibson probably beat him to the punch on patenting the humbucker.
Yeah. Sounds cooler.
Yeah, Seth Lover, man. You got to love them.
Any other popular combinations that you're seeing as far as requests coming through?
So I know a lot of people have asked about, changing to a P90.
From a humbucker.
Yeah. There are some really good options where you could do basically it's a P90 and a humbucker casing.
Right.
That a lot of people seem to
do, Jared.
Oh, yeah, but I get asked about it. In fact, somebody at the show actually asked me about that.
So you don't have to worry about, it's not going to fit.
Right.
Exactly. Because if you tried to put a P90 generally in a humbucker equipped guitar, you're going to have to do some routing.
Right. Wolf Tone out in Washington actually was or whatever developed a ring that actually fits on a humbucker guitar that holds in a P90 pickup. So I thought that was interesting. But of course, to all of us, it would be, in my opinion, a lot easier just to buy the humbucker that utilizes the P90 single coil.
Right.
In a humbucker casing, yeah.
It's not a true P90 when it's in a humbucker casing.
But it's pretty close.
But it's close.
It's close enough. I mean, some people like that 60 cycle hum, I guess. I don't know.
How about, one of the things, we're talking about mixing and matching, things that I've run into is pickups being out of phase with each other. Like if you're using a stock pickup and then a custom pickup on the other. So basically what happens, a lot of times you put a new pickup in and put the switch, let's say it's a 2 pickup guitar for the sake of argument, and in the middle position, it just sounds like it's tinny and whiny, like a position 2 or 4 on a Strat sometimes.
Peter Green.
Well, that's true.
But it doesn't sound that great when you have single coil pickups. So when you do that, you request for something like that, I say, I will send it to you with a 3-wire lead. And basically what that is, you have a ground, a hot, and an isolated ground. The isolated ground is the ground that is into, that comes out of your pickup. And then the general ground is basically just
the bass and the cover. If
a wire, any metal.
So it gives you the ability to switch the black and the white leads in case it's out of phase with the pickup that's in there.
That's extremely important and will be the cure-all for any headache you have.
Is that also what you do for tapping coils?
No. Tapping coils is a little different because of what you're doing is shutting off a coil of the pickup. And you can use a 3-wire lead to do that, but I would recommend a 4-wire lead if it's a humbucker style guitar.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. Yep. And the advantage of having because that's actually something that a lot of factory models are offering now, simply because it's a common mod. Mm-hmm. Talk about that just real briefly.
Sure. If you have
from a musical standpoint, Tony, you answer it. From a technical standpoint, Jared, you answer it.
Sure. So, I mean, in some cases, maybe if you have a humbucker equipped guitar, let's just say that, you want maybe more of a single coil sound, maybe brighter,
or cutting the thickness, maybe.
Yeah, getting rid of the mid range. So basically, with a coil tap, you're essentially shutting down one of the coils of the pickup. I mean, it makes it essentially into a single coil pickup sound, but you also you're gaining noise on it too, because you're essentially shutting down one of the canceling coils.
So what we're talking about, the tapping, you're able to pull the knob up. Yeah, and that is what activates the isolation of the coil.
Right, you're basically sending part of that coil or part of the pickup to ground.
Right.
But there's another really cool modification that was used originally on lap steels, but PV started using it, where they'll take, normally if you have a 4-conductor wiring, there's 2 wires that are wired together in the middle. If you take those and solder them to the empty lug on your tone control, and what happens is, as you open up the tone control, it actually sends those coils to ground. So it in effect makes it a variable coil tap.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a neat little modification you can try.
On that note, another term we hear a lot is, I think in association with pickups, and we're still on pickups, everybody. So, but treble bleed. Which is another one of those, sort of black magic voodoo things that people are doing with the in between the pickups and the pots.
Yeah, basically that's just, as you turn your volume control down, it allows a certain amount of the high end to cross over to the output.
Right. So you're not
losing high end.
Exactly. All right, so Tony, that was an excellent explanation of audibly what will be expected if you have any tapping going on, coil tapping going on. But from a consumer standpoint, if I'm looking to my pickup builder to say, hey, I'd like to modify my guitar, I want some new humbuckers, and I want them to be tapped, or I want to be able to have the treble bleed or anything like that. What needs to be considered in that?
Well, yeah, it's not just ordering pickups that that can utilize that, with the 4-wire leads, but it's also changing out your wiring harness, or maybe a pot that is a push pull that has the terminals to be able to switch and ground that coil. The cool thing about that as well is, cutting a coil to get that single sound. The single coil sound is with a 4-wire lead. You could actually also, put your pickup out of phase for the middle position. But as far as if somebody's asking me about, what are the benefits of that 4-wire lead? What do I need to do? I would suggest that you look into the many wiring harness builders, or do research on how to wire a 4-wire lead to a switchable pot.
Right. So that's something that you need to make sure that you're asking someone that you're getting your pickups from.
Yeah.
Is that a service that they offer? Or if not, if they can recommend somebody, or go to your recommended guitar repair, because that's also something maybe that you don't. If you're not used
to messing with stuff like that, because the wires are kind of fine, and you don't want to put a big old glob of solder on it.
Yeah.
But an excellent resource on the internet. I mean, there's tons of forums and things, but I've always found like the Seymour Duncan has an incredible library of wiring modifications, or even standard wiring, in case you need a quick reference.
I got big puffy pictures too.
Yeah, big PDF files.
Pictures, yeah. And then we also have had a recent guest,
Gun Street Wiring.
That's right. And they provide a ton of different options along those lines.
Right.
And we'll make anything that you want if you have a special request, like a treble bleed or something.
Yeah.
And they're mighty fine people too. So, all right, Jared, on the last question that we have for you, I know that we were approached by many people who actually either brought in their guitar, which I think is a great idea, so that you don't have to disassemble it, because, you can check output if you bring in your guitar or your pickup. So, Jared, if you go to a pickup builder at a show, they can hopefully do it right there.
Yeah.
Or check ahead and see if they'll do that. But a lot of people had rewinds. I think there was one guy that brought a whole bag of them.
Yeah, like 4 different. He had a whole. So this this fella came in with this bag of pickups, as you said, and he was asking me which ones worked and which ones didn't, and then on top of that, which ones were worth the money rewinding, and which ones weren't. He didn't really know. So I love doing that, by the way. It's really fun. So he brought this big bag of pickups, and I had the tool that I mentioned earlier, which was the multimeter.
Yeah.
And basically all I did was test each pickup to see if it worked or not.
Why would I want to rewind a pickup?
Well, the main reason is if you have an older guitar that means something to you and you really like the sound of that pickup, or you like the pickup, or if it's a vintage guitar and it's worth a lot of money and the guitar is worth more with the original pickup in it. Yes, a rewind's going to devalue the guitar a little bit, but it's better than just sticking in a newer, modern replacement. That, if you paid the money to actually have the original pickup restored, I think there's a lot more respect and more uniformity in that aspect.
Are there any cases that a rewind, aside from just rewinding it because maybe the sound has changed over time, or there's corrosion or anything like that, if you're doing a rewind, you're like, there was specific magnets or specific type of wire or specific type of potting, or actually there's a really great one that you uncovered, that you took the pickup out. I think it was an old Fender, and instead of the typical black tape around the wiring, it was newspaper.
Yeah, that's a pedal steel, and that was designed by Leo Fender, and I think he actually wound those too himself. When you get into the more rare pickups, that's when a rewind's going to be a lot better and more necessary. Like, for instance, that lap series you're talking about, they don't make those anymore. That. And the wide range, if you have an old original wide range from the 70s, those have very rare magnets that are not made anymore at all. You know, you don't want to just buy a reissue and see it's a whole different pickup now, because it's really it's impossible now to make the old original wide range pickups the way they did in the past because of the magnets, and it's very expensive to make them like that now as far as production. So so a rewind is going to benefit you much more than a newer replacement pickup in that aspect.
Well, what causes a pickup to fail?
Usually atmosphere conditions, moisture.
If you live on the coast.
That's right. Moisture gets into those windings one way or another, and it corrodes in between the windings and the metal and the magnets. And the magnets in single coils are notorious to rust around the outer edges, and rust pushes outward, and it expands, and it corrodes and chews through anything. To give you an example how strong rust is, garage doors on a house, you have brick masonry on top of over a garage door, right? And the iron lintel underneath holds all that masonry up over the garage door. Well, you always, typically sometimes you see the crack in the masonry and the joints. That's because your lintel is rusting, and that rust pushed up all that brickwork. That's how strong rust is. It's crazy.
I've heard it never sleeps too.
It doesn't. It's cancer. It's what it is. So it ruins any pickup. And in humbuckers, they don't.
So if you're seeing a lot of rust or on your pickup poles,
you're going to have potential problems.
Yeah, when somebody sends me some mid 60s, 50s, or whatever old pickups like that, a whole set, generally I'll say, listen, if this one's rusting, the other two or the other one's probably going to die in the future. I'll either rewind it or leave it alone, and I'll leave it to the discretion of the customer.
I've seen a lot of newer ones that people just leave out. That I've run across that in Craigslist purchases where I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of rust around there. And now some people might think like, well, it's relicking. No, maybe not.
Yeah,
anything that has iron in it can potentially rust.
Yeah, another problem with pickups, why they go dead and not as much as the rust, is cold solder. Cold solder is when a solder joint it doesn't connect with the wire anymore for some funny reason, and you have to reheat that connection to get everything, get the metals to marry back together and create a connection. That happens once in a while. The old pickups that were made in Japan, like that came on Taisco and, all those brands that in generally with these that have this brown tape underneath, you have to take it apart to see, but this particular tape that they used, for some reason, it unmarries the connection between the coil wire and the connection leads.
That's acid. So it's the same thing in art.
Oh,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, you're right.
You're absolutely right. And Lindy Fralin talks about that too. He's a well-known pickup maker, and I'll come across those a lot. And those are pretty easy fix. You just undo the thing and the tape, and you just have to make sure you don't pull the start out of the coil, or else you're screwed. You have to rewind it. But yeah, just to reconnect those and then use the better tape. But
yeah,
great point, Todd. That's exactly what does that.
Look at me, my art
and
school.
Everyone said it would never do you any good.
Right. So, yeah, rewinding can really benefit, and sometimes it can be pointless if you have a cheaper guitar.
Yeah, very last question. The for real last question.
That's what you said last time.
I know. Whenever you go to a guitar show, and if you haven't experienced a guitar show, please get out and check them out. Get involved in the community, guitar community. It is a ton of fun. But if you go to a guitar show, or maybe even you see something on Craigslist or eBay, and it's basically like there's a guy and he's got a bunch of what are called smalls. All right, at a show, and he's got a couple of pickups, got probably a couple of pick guards, got a couple of tuners and doodads and whatnots, and then there's usually a small pile of pickups.
Yeah,
that the interesting thing about pickups is that it is very difficult to tell who made them or where they're from, just because of the nature of what they are. There are a few different ways, but largely if you see a pile of pickups, the first thing you say is, do you know who made this? Second thing is, do you know how what the output is? And so in consideration of those, is that a good deal? Is that a bad, or can those be good deals? Can they be bad deals? What should I look out for?
That depends. If you're looking for a very specific thing, and you're trying to make something original, and it could be a cheap pickup, maybe a $20 pickup or a $10 pickup that might complete your project. That would be a good deal to me. Or if you're looking to upgrade something, in that case, you really want to know what you're looking for, and you really want to know what they have. So sometimes you can't even take the word of the seller, and I'm not trying to say that a seller would try to be deceitful, but knowledge, I'm going to say this again, in this case, knowledge is absolute power. You don't want to overpay for something that you really don't know what it is. Seriously. And also, you want to make sure they have plenty of leads, and you want to...
Well, to be clear, not plenty of leads, but plenty of length of lead.
Yes.
Yeah. That's true. I didn't say... Yeah, I just didn't say that.
I got this pickup that has 10 leads.
Yeah,
this is going to be great.
Wow. You can do a lot with that. Yeah, you want to make sure there's plenty of lead on there. And if it's an older vintage pickup and it doesn't have much lead,
is the amount of
wire that goes from, that comes out of the pickup that hooks up to your pots.
Right. So if you find a pickup and you're like, this looks like a good deal, and it's like $20
and it's got like a 2-inch lead.
Yeah. Don't buy it.
Well, if it's a vintage pickup from the 70s or 50s or
and
60s.
You can verify that.
Yeah. Then it would be worth it. And then pay me $30 to change the lead, and you've got a very good pickup.
There you go.
And if you're looking for random pickups for an ES335 or a hollow body, leads is going to be a very important thing to consider.
Yeah.
Because you need long leads for those guitars.
Yeah, totally.
All right. This has been a ton of fun and hugely informational. I feel very informed as a consumer, as a general consumer, someone who likes to tinker and mod and try new things. So... And this is taking the danger out of that.
And if I have one really good piece of advice for you pickup guys out there that look at pickups all the time and look for pickups, get to know that multimeter really well and take it to guitar shows with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are several videos on the internet that explain how to do that. And once you are comfortable, it can be really fun and helpful, because then you can actually go through your whole guitar collection and determine, it'll help you identify, like, why do I like that sound of this particular guitar? It may be one of the factors,
That'll definitely help big time.
Especially if you're selling it too, then you can also say, hey, I've got these particular pickups in it, and it's got this kind of output, and yada, yada, yada. Bada bing. Bada boom. All right. All righty. Let's do our next big segment, which is...
Would you rather? All right. This week's Would You Rather is brought to us by Tim Novak. So here's the situation. You're walking down the street with your favorite guitar, and somebody runs up, takes it, and smashes it all over the sidewalk. It's gone. It's a goner. There's no fixing it.
What? Who?
So...
There's evil people.
Where are you
right.
when this happens? This sounds like a terrible place to live.
It's basically pretty much not going to happen. But so your favorite guitar is gone, and you go into this guitar shop nearby.
There happens to be one very close by.
That's right.
Lucky you.
So money is not an object here. You've got all the money in the world. So would you rather have a really nice made in USA American professional Stratocaster, but you can never mod it? You can't do anything to it.
No, you spend all your money on it.
That's right. And there's
Even though money is no object.
So you can never mod this guitar, right? It is the way it is.
Money is no object because it's gone.
That's right. Or would you rather have a lower end Stratocaster Squire, but you can mod the crap out of it. Do anything you want.
New pickups, new pick guard,
to the price.
Pick guard, new strap
tuning
locks.
machines, new
That's right.
everything.
A nut and basically rebuild the guitar. So what are you going to do?
Ooh,
Todd, you start.
This is a Strat, right?
It's a Strat.
I'm going last. Tony Baloney hit us. or as I called on your phone, Monsieur Ballonnet.
Monsieur Belloni. Wow, that now I am a fan of inexpensive guitars that have been upgraded. Mm-hmm. I own many, and it would depend if this Squire was maybe one of the Japanese Squires.
I don't think it is.
Oh, it's not. This is the
brand new. This
is a $129 special.
You don't know what it is.
Indonesian. Okay.
Something.
I think in this case, if it's, I mean, you can sometimes, as they say, when you polish a turd, you end up with a shiny turd.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with the American Pro and just live with it as it is.
Yeah. Okay. Jared, you're really struggling with this over here.
Absolutely am. I'm going to go the short answer and say American Pro. I am because I just am.
Okay.
I'm going to know what the Squire is. It's going to bother me. Even though you change everything out, yada, 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 knowing what it is, and maybe I'll never get past the shape of the neck, right? I'm not going to pay, $1 million to have the neck shaved and all that kind of thing.
Right.
I'm just going to go.
But money's no object.
It is, but I want to play right away, right? I don't want to take the time and the energy to make all those changes.
Right.
I'm going to stick with the American Professional.
Okay.
The American Professional, everybody, if you don't know, it actually it comes a little better than the norm. So you're going to have the nice mods already done to it.
Yeah, they basically, Fender has taken a lot of the things that people do to stock instruments and put it in their professional series.
I think that's an easy answer. I'm definitely going with that.
How about you, Todd?
I'm fighting it because every ounce of me is saying mod the crap out of it because I like doing that.
Would you put a sparkle pickguard on it?
The overwhelming thing is the biggest problem is that it's a Stratocaster.
Toddy no likey.
So, yeah, I've run across, I've owned some Squires that have played great. I'd be like, bam, I got a good one here. In this case, because it is the Stratocaster, I'm gonna go with the American, and I'm not gonna mod it. And the first thing I'm gonna do is
sell it.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna go get a custom guitar from somebody else.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Anyways, all right, this has been super duper fun. Tony, we got a couple people we want to thank real quick.
We have a lot of people to thank. At this point of the show, we like to thank a special group of people who sponsor our program and help make all of this fun possible. If you'd like to find out how you can become a sponsor, go over to patreon.com/the guitar knobs and see the various levels that we offer. You get some great prize packages and things. And at the very top of the heap, we have our executive producers. And in addition to all that fun stuff that you get, Jared, what happens?
You get your name right on the thing.
And that's what I'm going to do right now. So without further ado, thank you very much to Mr. John Esterly, to Christopher Heidel, Tig Harmon, Tyler Bray, John Anglin, Anthony Lathrop, Johnny Knowles, Stefan Lamb, Rick Lenglu, Michael McVeigh, Michael Senchuk, Brian Robison, Jonathan Jerusik, Ken Sayers, Corey Nigro, Brad Partridge, Michael Van Zant, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, Chris Kearney, Sean S. John Daly, Martin Cliff, and Tom Barazin.
Hey,
Thank you, one and all.
All right. Thank you guys so very much. It boosts our spirits. It helps our show out tremendously, and we cannot thank you enough.
It keeps the lights on, as they say.
It literally keeps the lights on. So thank you so very much. If you're considering doing any kind of Patreon, it isn't just the executive producer. We also have a $5 entry as well. It don't get quite as much of the stuff, but it sure does help us out. And if that makes you sleep better at night, then I suggest you do it. All right, Tony, where can people find you?
You can just head on over to pickguardian.com. That's my website, and you can see some projects on there. If you want to see some of the projects that we've been talking about, I do a lot of postings on Instagram, and that's pickguardian and the number 1. Call us today.
Right on, Jared.
Well, you can get a hold of me at Jared at BrandonWellmanPickups.com. And I do all sorts of really cool stuff with pickups. So
if you need something all
new,
about it.
Need something new or new and old looking, just give me a holler.
Yeah. All right. You can drop me a line at Todd at theguitarknobs.com, an email. You can also DM me on Instagram with any questions, comments, shout outs, whatever's. Please make sure, we'd love to hear what your would you rathers are. We love getting those in. We've got quite a few and it's super fun. And gentlemen, let's have a great guitar week ahead of us and subscribe.
Yeah. The bouillabaisse. My one guitar that I have. Oh, you mean the black one with the gold guard?
That one.
How many does he have? 4 of them like that?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to mention that. Why am I mentioning that?
Why are you mentioning that?
I'm not going to mention it.
Don't even mention it.
Okay, let me try that again.
What are you talking about?
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.